Welcome to This Explainer. You know that feeling when a sudden, totally inexplicable wave of frustration just ruins a perfectly good day? Maybe someone didn't react the way you wanted, or a plan shifted at the last minute, and bam, your mood just tanks. Well, today, we're going to unpack a concept that fundamentally changes how we experience those exact moments. We're diving deep into the mechanics of inner peace, specifically how trading our rigid expectations for a mindset of appreciation is literally the most direct route to protecting your mental energy. Let's get into it. Expectation is the root of all heartache. Wow. You've probably felt the heavy weight of that truth before, right? Even if you couldn't quite put it into words. The core of our daily conflict, that sharp sting of frustration or disappointment, it almost always comes from the agonizing gap between how we think things absolutely must be versus how they actually are. Think about planning a perfect evening out. You've got the flawless timeline, the exact table at the restaurant, the precise flow of conversation, all mapped out in your head. But then traffic hits, the reservation gets lost. Suddenly, the night feels ruined. But here's the thing. The heartbreak isn't caused by the traffic. It's caused by the gap between the reality of that traffic and your unyielding expectation of a seamless drive. Our brains love to act as prediction machines, writing these rigid scripts for the future. And when reality inevitably goes off script, our immediate reaction is emotional pain.
Which brings us to Section 1, Standards versus Expectations. To actually reclaim our peace, we have to understand this massive divide in where we truly hold power. It really all boils down to separating our standards from our expectations. Now, a standard, that's a rule for how you choose to behave. It dictates your own personal output, your work ethic, your integrity. You have 100% control over your own standards. An expectation, on the other hand, is a demand you place on how others behave or how uncontrollable events unfold. The very second you project your personal rulebook onto someone else, your control drops to absolute zero. You might hold yourself to a super high standard of being meticulously punctual, and that's great. That is completely within your power. But if you walk around demanding that your friends, coworkers, and family members meet that exact same standard, you're basically handing the keys to your emotional state over to other people's time management skills.
So the real superpower here is application, dropping the expectation to stay at peace. If a friend is running late, our ego usually wants to cling to that expectation, right? Because we falsely equate their lateness with a lack of respect for us. Our brain is screaming, they should have planned better. But the source material tells us to hold on to our high standard for ourselves while actively releasing the expectation that everyone else is going to flawlessly match it. Dropping that expectation is an active protective measure for your own mind. It lets you just relax. Instead of sitting there spiraling into frustration and letting resentment totally poison your morning, you stay completely at peace. You can use that extra 20 minutes to just enjoy your coffee, read an article, or simply decompress. You protect your peace by accepting the moment exactly as it is. And honestly, when you enter a situation with a rigid script of how it supposedly should go, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Imagine saving up for a dream beach vacation. You expect perfect sunshine, endless luxury, the whole shebang. If it rains, that deviation feels like a catastrophic failure of the universe. But imagine entering that exact same trip with zero rigid expectations. You arrive completely open to whatever happens. Suddenly, a rainy afternoon isn't a ruined itinerary. It's an invitation to find a cozy local cafe, listen to the rain hit the cobblestones, and just have a deeply relaxing afternoon. Without that rigid script dictating what the day must be, every single positive moment becomes a genuine gift. You're pivoting from demanding the world cater to your script to simply appreciating the unique reality of what's unfolding right in front of you. Let's keep moving. Section 2, releasing social mental contracts. So a mental contract is a pretty profound concept. It's basically an agreement we make in our own heads that the other person never actually signed up for. And honestly, most of the time, they don't even know it exists. A massive amount of our interpersonal stress and friction comes directly from expecting exact reciprocity. We subconsciously assume that people are going to treat us exactly as we treat them, communicate exactly as we communicate, and love exactly how we love. When we do a favor for a colleague, we might silently write a mental contract that they now owe us a favor of equal value. It creates this invisible debt. And when people inevitably fail to pay off a debt they never even agreed to, well, it breeds this silent, toxic resentment that can completely destroy friendships, romantic relationships, and professional collaborations.
Breaking these contracts requires a fundamental shift in why we act. We've got to start giving, loving, and helping simply because it aligns with our own core values, not because we're waiting for a specific transactional return on our investment. For example, if you spend hours picking out and sending a truly thoughtful birthday gift to a cousin, do it purely for the joy that giving brings you. If you attach an expectation of receiving a glowing emotional thank you text in return, you've already jeopardized your peace. If that text never comes, you're going to feel bitter and unappreciated. But by consciously releasing the need for a specific reaction, your peace remains totally intact regardless of how they respond. You gave the gift because you are a generous person, and that is exactly where the transaction beautifully ends. Moving right along to Section 3, rethinking progress and timelines. We do this to ourselves too. We constantly project expectations onto our own internal growth. We so often expect our personal evolution, our healing process, or our career trajectory to be this perfectly straight line moving perpetually upward. We think, hey, if we put in the work, we should see immediate, visible results every single day. But human reality, it's naturally cyclical. It's messy and it is full of friction. When you're learning a difficult new skill, you're inevitably going to have bad days where absolutely nothing clicks and you feel like you've moved backwards. If you expect constant, linear improvement, a bad day feels like a crushing defeat. However, when you accept the natural ebb and flow of growth, you stay peaceful. You realize that a messy setback isn't a failure at all. It's literally just the necessary cyclical reality of long-term progress. And you know, society loves to install these invisible, ticking clocks in our minds. By 25, we're told we should have achieved milestone 1. By 30, we should be perfectly settled down. By 35, we should be at a specific executive career peak. These linear comparisons are for sure some of the greatest thieves of peace in the modern world. If you find yourself at 35 and you're not at the career level you silently expected, you can so quickly spiral into feeling like an absolute failure. But listen, life does not owe you a specific outcome by a specific calendar date. Real peace comes from dismantling those arbitrary societal timelines, trusting your own unique pace, and profoundly acknowledging that you are exactly where you need to be to learn the lessons you are currently learning. And that brings us to Section 4, the ultimate peace shift. This is the final equation, and it's a game changer. Happiness equals reality minus expectations. It's basically foundational math for the human mind. If your expectations for a situation, a person, or a career are sky high and wildly specific, it's incredibly difficult for the messy reality of the world to ever measure up. The result? A negative balance, which we experience as unhappiness. Now let's be super clear here. Operating with zero expectations does not mean having zero ambition, and it absolutely doesn't mean abandoning your personal boundaries. It simply means detaching your baseline happiness from highly specific, totally uncontrollable outcomes. If you can lower your rigid, demanding expectations to zero, your reality immediately becomes infinitely more vibrant. Why? Because every good thing that happens transforms from a demanded requirement into a wonderful, unexpected bonus. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a moment to reflect on your own life right now, today. Is there a stubborn should currently hovering over you? Is there a situation you feel should be unfolding differently? Is there a person in your life who you feel should be acting in a certain way? Or maybe a place you feel you should be in your personal journey by now. Think about how heavily that single expectation is weighing on your daily mental energy. And more importantly, ask yourself, what would it feel like to actively let go of that expectation today? You might just find that the very thing keeping you from peace was never the situation itself, but the script you wrote for it. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.